This is your good buddy DJClyve, the Ranma 1/2 character profile guy. I haven't done this in a while, so forgive me if I'm a bit rusty. And I'm a little spitty today because I'm eating a delicious mesquite barbecue chicken hot pocket, and I got a dog on my lap licking my elbow pit. I am having such a rough day right now, you would not believe, and that's probably why I'm doing a commentary today instead of working on my other stuff. Word to the wise, or at least word to the me of the future, never ever use an iPad for video, because I discovered, like an idiot, looking at my iPad, just how great the video looked on it, and I said, you know what, maybe I could start shooting some video with this and use it for movies. And it looks great, it looks almost HD quality, but when I put it into my programs, I'm not sure if it's because the computer is bogged down with stuff or if it just doesn't like the file format. It does not work with my editing software. When I transfer my movie into a file, be it AVI or MPEG or whatever, it always comes back with weird sound glitches and weird video glitches. Stuff that I've never had to deal with before, but they're popping up like wildfire now. They're all over the place, and it's very, very annoying when, excuse me, when you produce something perfectly the first time and you just have to keep trying to, finagle with it to try to get it to work with your program. And I'm in the middle of a few live action projects right now that require a lot of editing and a lot of the video I took with my iPad, unfortunately, and I'm gonna run into these problems again and again and again. It really, really slows you down. Something that should take only like one day ends up taking like a week. And the more I think about it, the more I just want to be done with all of this, and that's probably why that I shall be retiring from the Ranma 1/2 character profile biz sooner than anticipated, because I just can't deal with this anymore. My software is awful. My computer is just, I feel like I'm in a wrestling match with it every time I produce one of these videos, and it's making my hair fall out, literally. So unfortunately, there were a lot of ideas that I wanted to do before I unleashed the Ranma Toma profile, but I'm gonna have to speed up the process a little bit and get it out there, just so I don't have to deal with this crap anymore. It's becoming less a hobby and more just a second job when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this profile. This is the Prince Toma profile. On to happier things. This was the first profile that I ever put out in an MPEG 2 format, which means it looks extra crystal clear compared to all the videos that came out at the same time this did. And then after this, for some reason, I went back to the MPEG 4 for a little while. I think because my computer was so bogged down that I didn't want it to become so overflowing with data that it would start to affect my other programs. And I'm no stranger to that. I think that's probably what's happening to me right now. But yeah, this was a profile that I was very proud of. It was on my personal top 10 for a long time, but it's probably been bumped off since the newer profiles came out. This profile I wanted to present in kind of a techno-y kind of style, since Prince Toma is kind of like a magician / wizard type. I wanted it to be very, very flashy, so I put a lot of like computer sounding music and a lot of like matrixy effects into this one. A lot of the score in this one is by a guy named DJ who used to do a lot of remixes for like old Nintendo games, and I don't know why the heck he stopped making music, because he was awesome at it. I was fortunate before he took his site down to download all of his remixes and put them on a CD, so I have them all in safekeeping, so I shall continue to enjoy DJ Axis. And if by some miracle he's watching this right now, DJ Axis, it's not too late. You can still produce music. Hey, Rescue Rangers had some great music. Why don't you do some remixes of that? So yeah, right now we're watching Ranma 1/2 the movie 2, Ni Hao My Concubine, a movie that I thought very highly of when I first saw it, and still think very, very highly of. the vastly superior of the two movies, I'd say. I mean, because, well, for one, look at the animation. Look how crisp this is. Look how everything flows, and everything is like the movements are all exaggerated and just, I don't know. They just captured the style of these characters so well. The characters are just all so distinct in just how they look and how they move even. You look at a guy like Sarutaru, his arms just look very, very heavy, and it's almost like he has to throw his whole body around just to move his arms about. And just those little subtle touches, I love that kind of stuff in animation, and that's the stuff that I look for. And if I see stuff like that, that's really how I judge a good anime or animation, because they're looking at subtle touches as well as just the movements they have to go through. If you watch early like Don Bluth films like The Secret of Nim, or even like the later ones like Anastasia, they were always very good at that kind of thing. The characters never stop moving in a Don Bluth film. They're always constantly, like, even when they're standing perfectly still, they're kind of fidgeting about or fixing like an article of clothing or moving their fingers and just like little itty bitty details. An even better example of that I can think of right off the bat is, and that no pun intended, is an episode of Batman the Animated Series, where Batman and another guy were having a conversation, and at the same time Batman was talking, he was fixing his glove, and he was just kind of pulling the end of it and tightening the fingers and like stretching his fingers about. And I was looking at that, I'm like, wow, the animators didn't have to go through the trouble to do that. He could have just been, just as easily been just a still animation frame with flapping lips. But they go that extra effort, that extra mile, just to make it real, just to make the characters jump off the screen like they could actually be talking to you in real life. And that's the kind of stuff that I really, really love. Disney was like that in the beginning, and I think they got a little lazy towards the end. You'd see every once in a while the characters would stop moving and they'd be a still animation frame. And, I think starting with Aladdin really looked like a cartoon and not an animated film. But this is just diarrhea of the mouth. We are talking about an anime here, and I'd say about 90% of anime out there involves characters that just stop and it's just a single animation frame and flapping lips. You see that everywhere. I won't forget, this is another tangent, I don't even remember what I was originally talking about anymore. When Ghost in the Shell came out, the first movie, they were advertising it as the most groundbreaking animated feature since Akira. And you people who have been listening to these commentaries know how I feel about Akira. Akira is one of the greatest movies of all time. I don't even relegate it to just an animated movie. I put it up there with all my favorite movies. And the animation in Akira is just awesome. Like I was saying before about Don Bluth, there is never a moment where the characters are staying still. And the thing I love most about Akira is that when the characters spoke, you actually saw them, you could see the mouths sounding out the words, which is something that I was not used to in anime. Their mouths were actually moving to the dialogue instead of just being three animation cells, just a mouth open, a mouth half open, and a mouth shut. So I always thought that was awesome. When Ghost in the Shell came out, I was just expecting more of the same. And unfortunately, anytime one of those characters, as awesome as that movie is, anytime the characters get into a conversation, it's just still animation frames and flapping lips. I'm like, this is nowhere near as good as Akira. So I apologize to any Ghost in the Shell fans out there, but I've seen Akira probably about 10 or 20 times. I've seen Ghost in the Shell twice, and I was done with it. The animation was superb, but I think a lot of that had to do with the computer age and stuff that Akira, they didn't have access to back in the day. Akira was old school animation done right. They didn't have to take any shortcuts. And look at that, we are at the end of the profile and I didn't say a word about it. I was just spewing discourse and I couldn't stop myself. I apologize. One thing I remember about this profile was this test pattern screen here. The bass is just overpowering there, and when you watch it on a TV with a stereo system attached to it, the bass just rattles the walls. It's so freaking loud. I was dealing with those small speakers back then. I couldn't tell the proper sound levels, and you guys know the story by now on that. But otherwise, I like the Prince Toma profile. It's straight and to the point. It covers all the bases, and it's got a lot of like flashy imagery and cool music. Yeah, it's definitely up there, one of my favorites. Maybe in my top 20, not in my top 10. Now we're gonna move back in time to Ranma 1/2, the movie 1, Big Trouble in Nakhon-Ron, China, and we're looking at Prince Kiran and his cadre of 7 lucky gods. This is the Lychee profile that we're watching right now. I don't get to the title card for quite some time on this one. Prince Kiran and the 7 lucky gods, and pretty much any character that has to deal with the movies, they always require a lot of explanation, a lot of backstory. And if you're going to profile the characters, you have to explain every iota of that stuff. Otherwise, the character is not going to make any sense. So it's just a lot of blah, 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 leading up to Lychee. Lychee is a character who we should root for. Because you figure her whole life has just been absolute hell from start to finish because of this scroll. She's crying for her prince, and her prince never comes, and finally when her prince comes, he chooses someone else, and he leaves her kind of like a crying wreck. And you should pity this character, but I don't know about you, but I don't pity Lychee. I think just the character is just so annoying. Just so grating and so whiny. I just don't like the character. Maybe a lot of it has to do with the voice. I think the voice is just very high-pitched and screechy, and the accent kind of gets in the way. It's not as cute as when Shampoo says it. I just overall don't like the character. Maybe it's a little bit better in the Japanese dub because she doesn't have that voice. She has a different voice, but I've never watched it. I mean, maybe it's just me. Maybe there are fans of this character out there, but I haven't run into any of them since I started doing these character profiles, so I think I can make a pretty good judgment that she is not one of the more popular characters in the Ranma universe. This movie really needed its damsel in distress, or its heroine to base the whole movie around, and when your heroine is not likable, then that affects the whole movie. Having this screeching brat in your ear for the entire duration of the film, it really dragged this movie down lower than it even was in the beginning, and it was pretty low in the beginning. When I first saw this movie, I really liked it, but that was more because of the familiarity of the characters. But when you really, think about it, you could have stuck any characters from any anime into this plot, and it would have played out the same exact way. Ranma and his friends did not stand out in this crazy plot. It was mostly just Kiran and Lychee, and Ranma, as much as they were shoved to the forefront, they were kind of background characters in this movie. Imagine like Macbeth. Like the whole story just revolved around like Banquo or something like that. They took one of the lesser characters, shoved him in front of your face, and he was just in every scene standing in front of everybody. But the movie's not about him, it's still about these other people, So, yeah, the more I watch this movie, the more I kinda turn against it. The animation and the colors and just the art style, it's not the greatest. I mean, it's still above par, but for a feature-length film, it should have been top-notch. And this was, I'd seen episodes of the actual anime, the TV series, that looked better than this movie. Of course, the first season of Ranma 1/2 looked a lot better than this movie did. Not to say that I totally dog on the animation, by the way, because I'm looking at stuff that I used to hate back then, and I'm loving it now because animation is in the sorry situation that it is right now. This is Disney, beyond Disney quality compared to something like My Little Pony. Speaking of which, I just recently went to the movies and I saw a trailer for a My Little Pony movie, which is done in the same exact animation style as the TV series. Even if you're a brony, please do not give them the satisfaction of taking your money for this, because it's just an insult. I guarantee that you, at home, could produce a movie similar or better than that for the price of the movie ticket that you're going to spend to go see this crap. Get yourself a little like anime program or some program where you can create your own Flash animation and make your own story. Take the time and, make your own characters, and you'll be so much more rewarded in the end. You'll have your own product, and you don't have to, give some big studio tons and tons of money for creating something that can easily be created by a fan at home. You have no idea how angry that made me when I went to the theater and I saw the trailer for that My Little Pony movie. I was just saying to myself, the unmitigated gall of these big studios charging you, $20-something to see something that you can just as easily see at home for free, and there's no increased quality there. I think a big movie production, an animated movie, should have increased quality. Be it the art, the animation, or both. Just look at the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. You look at that and you look at the normal series and you can see there's a giant upgrade there. They introduced all sorts of new ideas, new animation techniques. There was one point where they had live action mixed with the animation, and it was a really cool experience. You went to the theater and you felt rewarded for plunking down that $20 to see that, because they went that extra mile to entertain. I would have no problem with the My Little Pony movie if they made it like real 3D computer animation, or, the traditional frame-by-frame animation like in the olden days. I mean, at least you've got somewhat of a budget there. There's not $1 million plus budget on this My Little Pony movie. It probably cost them 2 cents to make this thing. But I shouldn't dwell on that anymore while this profile kind of runs away from me. The clips we see here of Lychee are from, like I said before, Ranma 1/2 the movie 1, Big Trouble in Nakhon China, and this movie is kind of like a great divide in the Ranma community. A lot of people like it and a lot of people hate it. I think a lot more people hate it than like it. I think for good reasons too. You could probably see a couple of these reasons just from looking at these scenes out of context. The animation style took a little bit of a dip for this movie, and just the art is completely different from the series. It looks very different from what we are used to, and the color is just kind of like dull and just, I don't know, it's just, even like the red shirt that Ranma is wearing there, it's like an off red. It looks like a puke kind of tone. It's just a very drab movie to look at. But among other things, the movie was streamlined in the characters that it used. Like, all the characters were there in some form or another, but they really didn't use too many of the main cast besides the major ones, like Ranma and Akane. Happosai was there a lot. And of course these new characters they brought in. But everyone's favorites like Ryoga and Moose and Ukyo, they took a back seat to pretty much everybody. They barely were in this movie, and whenever they showed up, they were really of no importance at all, which was a really big shame. Something that they kind of remedied somewhat in the sequel, but even the sequel was kind of guilty of that. The lesser characters or the supporting players didn't have enough to do in those films. And I think a major reason why people hate this movie is just because Kiran and Lychee are not very likable characters. I personally found Kiran to be rather boring and Lychee to be rather irritating. You didn't really have too many characters that you just didn't like in the Ranma 1/2 universe. There's always Kodachi, but even Kodachi had a certain kind of charm about her. These two characters were just, bland pieces of, unbuttered toast. They're just like, there's really nothing to love or hate about them. And that's the worst thing. You never want just a character just to be dull. That's the worst insult. Even a bad character is great because you can rag on them and they're memorable. You can easily put these two in the same boat as like a Genji Heita. Just so boring, so nothing going on. And you take these characters and then you put them side by side with the ones in the sequel, and it's just like apples and oranges. And I mean, but kind of like rotted apples to delicious oranges because the sequel just did everything so much better. All the characters had their own little flair, their own little gimmick. I like a lot of the Seven Lucky Gods. A lot of them are just kind of dumb and, like Bishamonten, there's nothing going on there. Wu is just pretty much a placeholder, and very few of the Seven Lucky Gods really stood out besides Monlone, Ebiten. I kind of like the twins. The twins are cool. But other than that, they're kind of boring characters. I was not really a fan of this first movie. I was in the beginning, but the more I watch it, the more I kind of rebel against it. Alrighty, Roo, here we come to the final video that we shall be watching for this commentary. This is the Prince Kiran profile, not to be confused with the Kiran profile. This is just another one of those deals where I was away from YouTube for a while. I was working feverishly on the Ranma Sao Tome profile as well as other projects. Every once in a while, Jara White and I would fire off a manga profile, but those weren't the same as my anime profiles. I just wanted to make sure that people knew that I was still out here and I was still producing stuff. I wasn't sitting on my hands. So this happens every once in a while, and I'm really running out of characters to do, so Prince Kiran, I said once before that he kind of got the short end of the chopstick when it came to profiles, and I decided to do him proper. Wasn't my first choice, but I'm starting to run out of choices. But you go back and you watch that first Kiran profile, and it really was kind of a misstep. It was very, very early in my Ranma 1/2 tenure, and I hadn't really learned a lot of tricks, although that profile was unique in that I presented it in a more music video style, and I think I got a little carried away with the special effects and just the music that was playing in the background, and the character got lost in that. I was just so happy playing with my equipment. This is back when my equipment worked, but that's another story. I was just so blinded by the things that I could do that the character took a backseat to just me having fun with it. And nowadays I do things a lot differently than the way I did them back then. I have to be very complete with these characters. I have to explain every facet of their personalities, every skill, every nook and cranny of the character. And I definitely didn't do that in that first profile. I didn't even mention the rice and pickled vegetables, which is a very big part of his character. As stupid as it is, and I always found that part of this movie very stupid, that was such a big part of the plot, rice and pickled vegetables. But you can't do a profile on this character without mentioning that. So I thought that a redo was in the cards for this character, and very well needed. Editing this movie came pretty easily. It was very standard, very informative, but this was about the point where my software started to fail on me, and this is something that I have been trying again and again and again to try to get around, and it's just not working. My software is going haywire, and I don't know what could possibly be going on. This is my Avid Studio. This is something that always worked for me. Whenever Pinnacle Studio would give me problems, I'd always go to Avid and say, okay, well, Pinnacle can't handle it, Avid sure as shit can, and now Avid sure as shit can't. It is an absolute mess. You put together a video project, it turns it into a spaghetti mess when you transfer that project into a file. It will look perfect when you play it in your player window, but when you transfer it, even to an AVI, which was always my failsafe. If it's not going to work as an MPEG, it'll always work as an AVI. That doesn't even work anymore. So I'm running out of options. I don't know what to do, and it's really making me tear my hair out because I should be done with so many damn projects right now, but I deal with this kind of thing for weeks for a single project, trying to get it out when it's perfect. I'm looking at the project in my face and it's playing perfectly in front of me, and when the trick is to turn it into a file and the program can't handle it. There's nothing more frustrating than this. It's like picture working on a piece of art or something like that. Not that I'm saying that this is art, But I take, I put a lot of effort into this, and just to have the program just like fondle with everything you've done, and just, you in the end you have like an incomplete, like imperfect product. It's like somebody taking your art and just getting a black marker and just like making random smudges here and there. It's not perfect anymore. It's not your vision. And that's exactly what's happening with me, and it's so aggravating. I'm working on a project with Jarrah right now where I have to transfer one of his videos to a widescreen so I can introduce a Tobias-style character. And for whatever reason, when I turn this into a file, the video gets all jittery on me. It looks like you're watching a strobe effect. And it's definitely not on his end, because I look at the video he sent me, it's nice and smooth. And it's not even like I'm dealing with a complicated file here. It's the movie is very standard. I made it as simple as possible. It can't handle simple things anymore, and I don't know what to do about this. And what really sucks majorly is that parts of the Ranma month that I have coming up require me to use Avid Studio, because there's one thing that I'm working on. It's a giant like live action project that it requires me to add sound effects, and I'm going to need multiple layers of sound effects, so I can't use Pinnacle. I got to use Avid. And Avid is just been a pain in the ass just to work with. Everything you do is just, you wouldn't believe some of the weird malfunctions I've seen over the past couple of weeks dealing with this thing. Coming up at the end of this profile, you're going to see a short live action segment which is counting down to the final days of DJClyve, and I also introduce a new character, Ostra Mouse, which is actually an old character from my old movies I used to make. But you wouldn't believe how hard that simple thing was to put together, because, well, for one, and it's going to be very, very hard for me to explain this because they're such inexplicable errors that happen. I've been taking a lot of video with my iPad because the video is so much more crisp, and it actually looks like almost HD quality when you put it on a big screen. So I've been using that to do a lot of my video, a lot of my green screening. And when I put it into Avid, it reads it fine in the player window, like I said before, but when you transfer this to a file, it is so weird what happens. Your video will start out fine, and then all of a sudden your sound will start to go out of sync, and it's so strange how it happens because you never hear the sound slip, you never hear it skip a beat. It's just all of a sudden, at one point it's matching, and at the next point it's not. At the end of this video, you're going to see a shot of me in a bathroom splashing water on my face, and as I splash the water and the sound that accompanies it, they matched up perfectly, but then the next second I go, 10, why do I keep seeing the number 10? And as I was saying that, the dialogue did not match my lips at all. It was off by like a full second, and I have no idea how it happened. Just more inexplicable errors, and you wouldn't believe how hard the split screen was to do. That was horribly annoying because I was dealing with two characters talking in unison, and the voices kept just slipping, and you can see it even in the finished product. I was not able to get the voices to match the lips, and I don't know what the heck kind of malfunction that is. I wish somebody could explain it to me, or I wish there was somebody else who had a similar problem, because I'm looking around at other people's videos and they're coming out just fine. I feel like I'm the only one struggling here. Hello, can anyone help me? Ugh. So originally I wrote it off as, okay, I won't use the iPad to do videos anymore, and the follow-up video I have for that end sequence, I have the follow-up video already pretty much all produced, but I can't transfer it to a file. It's being a problem, and I have it in somewhat of a watchable form right now, but I had to sacrifice quite a few scenes just because they wouldn't transfer to a file. They just kept slipping beats, or the sound kept going haywire, and it's so strange, the malfunctions I get. When I play some of these videos back in slow-mo, I'll see images of things that I never added in this in the video. It'll just add random stuff in there. Like, it'll take a photo of me and jumble it up and like turn it backwards and mirror it, and like it's so strange. And I tell you what, this couldn't suck any more royally, because I had so many projects on the horizon that required me to do acting in front of the camera. But while I'm doing that, I have to do complex video editing, and Avid Studio is the way to go with that. And unfortunately, it's just not working. So if there's no way for me to fix Avid Studio, I might have to call it quits early, unfortunately, and it really stinks. I had one project that was going to have a lot of live action stuff from me, a lot of live action comedy. Another one was going to have like a roll call of all the characters coming back for one last hurrah, and I'm not going to be able to do that stuff just as long as Avid is being the pest that it is. And here we're watching the video right now that this video took me about a week to make. This video should have been a one and done. I should have been done with this within a day. This is such a simple edit, or it should have been a simple edit. This was one of the hardest edits I've ever had to do because of my software. I don't know why it has to be like this, and I haven't been getting any answers. I've been looking all over the internet, and nobody has these problems with this software. Anyway, I should say something about Ostra Mouse. This character is such a pain in the ass to play, because number one, he wears a winter jacket because I have to hide my head in there. I need something big. And it's very, very hot in my house, especially on during the summer. I made this in July, so I was sweating, there's lights on me, and I had Ostra Mouse's dialogue playing on a stereo next to me, and syncing up the dialogue and the mouth while I'm in this jacket and I could barely hear. I've got it turned down all the way so it doesn't interfere with the audio too much. It was very, very difficult to do this shoot. By the way, Ostra Mouse, like I said before, is an old character of mine. I used him in Christmas specials as an assistant to Santa Claus. He came to people's houses and just like informed them they were being a bad boy, and he's just like, the funny thing about him is that he's always suffering. He always seems like he's sick or ill, and I have a lot of plans for Ostra Mouse, or at least I had a lot of plans before all this crap started happening. I don't know if they're going to come to pass, but we'll see what happens when I try to reinstall Avid Studio. And here comes, if you're quick on the pause button, you can see a lot of imagery here coming up as far as, oh wait, or maybe not. No, that was just the countdown to oblivion there that shows up. But in the follow-up, you're going to see a lot of images of future projects, so be quick on that pause button to try to find those. That is if you ever see that project, because the way things are going, it don't look too good. So, in any case, you could probably hear it in my voice. I'm exhausted just even talking about this. I tried to fix my latest project before I started working on this. I was having no luck. That's why I'm doing a commentary now, because I can't do anything else. It's the only thing that works. So this is a very frustrated good buddy DJClyve, the Ranma 1/2 character profile guy, bidding you adieu once again on Daily Motion, and what can I say about these profiles? They were fun to do, except for that Kiran profile, and pray for me, everybody. Life is Ranma.